Amara was only 10 years old, but she carried a light in her eyes that was brighter than the morning sun. Every day when she woke up, she would rush to the small window beside her bed and look up at the sky. Even if it was still dark, she would press her forehead against the cool glass and whisper to herself, "One day, I'll be up there." The stars, far away and sparkling like tiny diamonds, were not just dots of light to her. They were promises, invitations, and mysteries waiting to be discovered. She wanted to be an astronaut. She wanted to fly beyond the clouds, past the blue of the sky, and into the wide space that stretched forever. At school, Amara was quiet but very observant. She liked to sit near the window so she could steal little glances at the sky during her lessons. Most of her classmates dreamed of becoming singers, doctors, police officers, or even famous athletes. Amara respected their dreams, but she knew her own was different. Whenever she read books about space or astronauts, her heart raced with excitement. She felt like she belonged to the stars more than the ground she walked on. Her notebooks were filled with doodles of rockets, planets, and astronauts in big space suits. Sometimes she would lose track of her lessons because her mind was busy building rockets in her imagination. One morning, her teacher asked a question that made the entire class stir with excitement. "Children," she said, smiling at the rows of students in front of her, "today I want each of you to share what you want to be when you grow up." The classroom buzzed instantly. Hands shot up in the air, and voices filled the room. One boy wanted to be a professional football player, and his friends clapped. A girl wanted to be a famous singer, and everyone giggled, pretending to cheer. Another boy said he wanted to be a chef, and the teacher praised him for having such a practical dream. The children's faces glowed as they spoke about their futures. The room was alive with laughter, chatter, and joy. Amara's turn came. She hesitated for a moment because she knew her dream was not like the others. But then she remembered all the nights she had spent staring at the stars, the books she had read, and the stories of brave astronauts she admired. She straightened her back, lifted her chin, and said in a clear voice, "I want to be an astronaut." For a second, the room went quiet. Her words hung in the air like a secret no one had expected. Then, the teacher let out a small laugh, the kind that was not cruel but carried disbelief. "An astronaut," the teacher repeated. "That's a very big dream, Amara. Very big indeed. Maybe you should think of something more realistic." The words landed heavily on Amara's heart. A few classmates giggled softly, looking at her as if she had just told a joke. One whispered to another, "She thinks she can go to space." The teacher moved on quickly, asking the next child for their dream, but Amara was still stuck in that moment. She had shared something precious, and it had been met with laughter. She lowered her eyes to her desk and tried to pretend she didn't care, but inside, a storm was building. Why was her dream any less real than the others? Why was it easier to believe someone could sing on a stage than travel among the stars? The rest of the day passed slowly for her. She tried to focus on math, science, and reading, but her thoughts kept drifting back to the way her teacher had smiled as if her dream was impossible. She had always believed that teachers were there to encourage children, to tell them that anything was possible if they worked hard. But today, she felt smaller, almost invisible. The stars in her imagination seemed farther away than ever. At recess, when her friends ran to the playground, Amara stayed behind, sitting under a tree with her lunchbox unopened. She stared at the clouds drifting above, whispering again, "One day, I'll be up there," but her voice didn't sound as confident as it had in the morning. When the final bell rang, Amara gathered her book slowly. She didn't run out of the school building like the other children. She walked quietly, her steps heavy, until she reached the gate where her mother always waited for her. Dr. Elaine Johnson was a woman of calm strength. She had a warm smile, gentle eyes, and the kind of presence that made people feel safe. Today, however, She noticed something was wrong the moment Amara walked toward her. Usually, her daughter ran into her arms, talking about her day with excitement. Today, Amara's shoulders drooped, and her lips pressed into a thin line. "What's the matter, my star?" Elaine asked softly, crouching down to meet her daughter's eyes. Amara hesitated, then whispered, "Mom, my teacher laughed when I said I want to be an astronaut. She said it's too big of a dream." The words tumbled out of her mouth with a mixture of sadness and frustration. Elaine's heart tightened. She hugged Amara tightly and stroked her hair. "Did she really say that?" she asked gently. Amara nodded, burying her face in her mother's coat. "And the other kids laughed too," she added, her voice muffled. Elaine held her daughter's small hands in hers and looked her straight in the eyes. "Listen to me, Amara. Don't ever let anyone tell you that your dream is too big. Do you understand? The stars don't belong to certain people. They belong to everyone who dares to reach for them." Amara blinked, her eyes filling with tears. "But what if they're right, Mom? What if I can't do it?" Elaine's smile deepened, full of both love and certainty. "Sweetheart, you can. You know why? Because dreams are built step by step. And you're already taking those steps." They walked home together, and along the way, Elaine began pointing out little things that Amara had already done. "You love reading about space. You pay attention in science. You're curious and brave. Those are the things astronauts are made of." Amara listened closely, her heart beginning to feel lighter. By the time they reached home, she was smiling again. Her mother promised to show her something special after dinner, something that would prove her words. That night, after the dishes were washed and the house was quiet, Elaine opened a small wooden box she kept tucked away in her closet. Inside were photographs, medals, and certificates. Amara's eyes widened. "What is all this?" she asked. Elaine smiled and placed a picture in her hands. It showed her mother in front of a large rocket, wearing a badge that said NASA. "This, Amara," she said softly, "is where I work. I help design spacecraft and solve problems that astronauts face in space. I've been doing it for years." Amara gasped. She had always known her mother worked in science, but she had never realized the full truth. You work at NASA?" she asked, her voice full of awe. Elaine nodded. "Yes. And if I can do this, so can you. You carry my blood, my strength, and your own fire." Amara hugged her mother tightly, her heart swelling with pride and hope. The laughter of her teacher still echoed faintly in her memory, but it no longer felt so heavy. Now she had something even stronger to carry with her, the knowledge that her dream was not only possible but connected to her own family. That night, as she lay in bed looking out her window, the stars seemed closer again. She whispered to herself, "One day, I'll be up there," and this time, her voice was steady and full of belief. Amara woke up the next morning with mixed feelings. The memory of her teacher's laugh still stung in her heart, but the sight of her mother's NASA photographs had also planted a new kind of strength inside her. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about rockets and stars, and about her mother standing proudly beside them. The thought made her sit up straighter. Maybe yesterday was not the end of her dream. Maybe it was just the beginning. At breakfast, Elaine served pancakes and fruit, as she usually did. Amara sat quietly, her fork moving through her food, her mind busy with questions. Finally, she spoke. "Mom, what do you do at NASA exactly? I know you said you help with spacecraft, but how?" Her eyes sparkled with curiosity, eager to hear more. Elaine smiled warmly. She had been waiting for this moment, the moment her daughter would want to know in detail what she did. "Well," Elaine began gently, "my job is called aerospace engineering. That means I work on the machines that fly in the sky and in space. Some days, I design parts of rockets. Other days, I help solve problems that astronauts face when they're far away from Earth. She paused, noticing her daughter's wide eyes. For example, do you know that in space, astronauts can't just open a window when it gets hot? We have to build systems that keep them safe, keep the air clean, and the temperature just right. Amara leaned closer, fascinated. So you build the things that keep astronauts alive? She asked. Elaine nodded proudly. Exactly. It's like being a protector of their dreams. Without our work, they couldn't travel up there. Amara's chest swelled with pride. Mom, that's amazing. I didn't know you did so much. Elaine reached across the table and squeezed her daughter's hand. I wanted you to grow up first, to find your own dream before I told you all the details. But now, I see that your dream is already taking shape. And I want you to know, Amara, that your dream is possible. If I can work at NASA, you can one day fly with them. Her words felt like seeds being planted in fertile soil. Amara's doubts began to shrink, replaced with excitement. That evening, Elaine brought out a large binder filled with sketches, charts, and notes. She spread them across the living room table like treasures. Amara bent over them, tracing her fingers across diagrams of rockets, solar panels, and space modules. These are real designs, her mother explained. Every line, every measurement has to be exact. If one thing goes wrong, the entire mission could be in danger. Amara nodded, absorbing every word. So astronauts trust people like you? She asked softly. Elaine smiled. Yes, they do. And one day, they might trust you too. Amara felt her heart race. She imagined herself floating in space, looking down at the Earth, waving at her mom who would be watching from mission control. The picture in her head was so clear it made her giggle. I want to start learning more, Mom, she said firmly. I don't want to just dream. I want to prepare. Elaine's eyes filled with pride. She had always known her daughter was strong, but now she could see her determination blooming. Good, she said, nodding. Because dreams need action. And we're going to take small steps together. Over the next few weeks, their evenings turned into learning adventures. After homework, Elaine would pull out science books and simple experiments. They built a small rocket using baking soda and vinegar, launching it in the backyard as the neighbors clapped and cheered. They made a model of the solar system using colored balls and strings, hanging it from the ceiling of Amara's room. Every time she looked up, the planets spun gently, reminding her of her dream. Amara asked endless questions. How do rockets take off? How do astronauts eat in space? What happens if they get sick? Elaine answered patiently, sometimes even calling her colleagues to give simple explanations over video calls. To Amara, it felt like she had been invited into a secret world, a world filled with possibilities. But even as she grew excited, the memory of her teacher's laugh still lingered. One night, as they sat on the porch gazing at the stars, Amara whispered, Mom, what if my teacher is right? What if people don't believe in me? Elaine wrapped her arm around her daughter's shoulders and pulled her close. Sweetheart, people will doubt you. They will doubt you because your dream is big, and sometimes big dreams scare people. But their doubt doesn't matter. What matters is what you believe. Do you believe you can do it? Amara hesitated, then nodded. Yes. I believe. Elaine kissed her forehead. That's all you need to carry. Belief and hard work. At school, Amara's new energy started to show. She checked out books about space from the library, filling her desk with notes and drawings. She stayed behind after class, quietly working on little projects while her classmates played outside. Some of the children teased her, calling her space girl, but she no longer cared. Her mother's encouragement had given her armor. Every laugh she heard reminded her of the day she would prove them wrong. Every doubt became fuel for her determination. One day, the teacher noticed Amara's growing stack of space books. "You really are serious about this astronaut dream, aren't you?" she asked with a faint smile. Amara looked up, her small hands resting on a book about the solar system. "Yes, ma'am. I am serious," she replied firmly. The teacher raised her eyebrows, as if still unconvinced, but didn't laugh this time. Amara held her gaze for a moment, her heart pounding, before returning to her reading. She had decided that no one's opinion would dim her light again. At home, Elaine began involving her daughter in even more activities. They visited the local science museum, where Amara touched meteorite samples and sat in a mock astronaut capsule. They went to a planetarium show, and as the stars lit up across the dome ceiling, Amara felt tears in her eyes. It was as if the universe itself was whispering to her, telling her that she belonged there. Elaine watched her daughter's face in the dim light, her heart swelling with both love and pride. She knew that Amara's dream was not just a child's wish. It was her destiny unfolding. The bond between mother and daughter grew stronger with every step. Amara no longer felt alone in her journey. She knew she had her mother not just as her biggest cheerleader, but as someone who had walked a path connected to the stars. Every night, as they closed their eyes, Elaine reminded her, "Dreams are not impossible, Amara. They are only waiting for the brave to chase them." And every morning, Amara woke up with fresh determination, ready to carry her dream a little closer to the sky. The days at school seemed longer now, but for Amara, they also seemed brighter. She carried a notebook that she had started calling her dream book. In it, she wrote down facts she learned about space, ideas for rockets, and even little notes her mother gave her every morning before school. Sometimes those notes said things like "Reach for the stars" or "Remember, you are stronger than doubt." They gave her courage whenever she felt small. Still, school was not always easy. Her classmates didn't understand why she was so serious about studying planets and rockets when most of them just wanted to play games or talk about cartoons. "Space girl," they called her again sometimes, laughing when she carried yet another heavy book from the library. Amara tried to smile, but deep inside, the words stung a little. She wondered why chasing the stars made her different. Her teacher noticed her seriousness too. One afternoon, after class, the teacher pulled Amara aside. "Amara," she said kindly but firmly, "I see you are very interested in space. That's good. But you should also remember to focus on other subjects. Not everyone can become an astronaut, you know. It's a very rare path." The teacher didn't laugh this time, but her words carried the same doubt that Amara had heard before. For a moment, Amara's throat tightened. She wanted to say something bold, something like, "But my mom works at NASA," yet she stayed quiet. She felt it wasn't time to reveal that secret, at least not yet. Instead, she nodded respectfully and walked away, though inside, her heart felt heavier. That night, when she sat with her mother, she shared what the teacher had said. Elaine listened carefully, her face calm but her eyes glowing with strength. "Do you remember what I told you, Amara?" she asked gently. "Yes," Amara whispered. "You said people will doubt me because my dream is big." Elaine smiled softly and held her daughter's hands. "Exactly. And what do we do when people doubt us?" Amara took a deep breath and answered, "We keep going." Elaine kissed her forehead. "That's my brave girl." To keep herself busy, Amara poured her energy into projects. She asked her mother if she could join the upcoming regional science fair, and Elaine agreed instantly. Together, they brainstormed ideas. Amara wanted something connected to space, something that could show her classmates and teachers that she wasn't just dreaming, she was learning, she was building, she was serious. After days of thinking, she decided on a project about clean air systems, inspired by the life support machines astronauts need in space. Elaine was thrilled. "That's a wonderful idea," she said. It's both creative and practical. You'll not only learn about space but also about science that helps people here on Earth. The weeks that followed were filled with preparation. Amara spent her evenings building a model of an air system using simple materials like bottles, tubes, and filters. She explained every step to her mother, who guided her patiently. Sometimes things didn't work: water spilled, filters broke, or the design looked messy. At first, Amara grew frustrated. "It's not working, Mom. Maybe I can't do this," she said once, her eyes filling with tears. But Elaine knelt beside her and said, "Do you think real scientists always get things right the first time?" Amara shook her head slowly. "No, they don't. They try again." Elaine smiled. "Exactly. Every mistake is a step closer to success." Those words stayed with Amara. The next day, she tried again, and again, until finally the system worked as she imagined. She built a neat display board, decorated with pictures of astronauts and planets, and carefully wrote out explanations in her own handwriting. For the first time, she felt like a real scientist. When she looked at her project, she saw not just plastic and paper, but a piece of her dream taking shape. At school, some of her classmates noticed her project materials and laughed. "What are you building now, space girl?" "A spaceship," one boy teased. Amara didn't reply. She held her box tighter and walked past them. The laughter hurt, but she remembered her mother's words. Doubt was normal, but giving up was not an option. As the science fair approached, Amara began practicing her presentation. She stood in front of the mirror, speaking confidently about her project. "This is a model of a clean air system," she explained, pretending the mirror was a crowd of judges. "Astronauts need air to survive in space, and this system helps recycle air by removing carbon dioxide and providing oxygen." She practiced until her voice grew strong and clear. Elaine would watch and clap, correcting small details but always cheering her daughter on. "You're not just explaining, Amara. You're inspiring," she told her proudly. The night before the fair, Amara couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the stars through her window. Instead of whispering her usual words, she said something different this time. "Tomorrow, I'll show them who I am." Her heart beat fast, but it wasn't from fear. It was from hope, from excitement, from the belief that she was finally ready to take a step closer to her dream. The next morning, the school gym was decorated with tables and colorful posters. Students bustled around, setting up their projects with nervous laughter and excitement. Parents and teachers walked through the aisles, stopping to admire the displays. Amara set up her model carefully, smoothing the edges of her board and adjusting the tubes one last time. Her hands trembled a little, but her eyes shone with determination. When the teacher passed by, she paused at Amara's table. Her eyes scanned the project, and for once, she didn't smile in disbelief. Instead, she looked surprised. "This is interesting, Amara," she said softly. "You worked very hard on this, didn't you?" Amara nodded politely, but inside, her heart leapt. It wasn't full acceptance, but it was the first sign of respect. As the fair continued, judges and visitors approached Amara's table. She spoke clearly, explaining her model with confidence, showing how it connected to space missions and even how it could help people on Earth who needed clean air. Some of the adults raised their eyebrows in admiration. "That's impressive for someone your age," one of them said. Amara's cheeks flushed with pride. She noticed her teacher watching from a distance, arms folded, expression unreadable. For a moment, Amara felt nervous again, but then she remembered the countless evenings she and her mother had spent building, failing, and building again. That thought filled her with courage. She lifted her chin, smiled, and continued speaking with passion. By the end of the day, Amara felt like a different person. She wasn't just a girl with a dream anymore, she was a girl proving her dream step by step. Whether she won or lost didn't matter as much as the fact that she had stood strong, even when others doubted her. That night, when she got home, she hugged her mother tightly. "I did it, Mom," she whispered. "I showed them." Elaine held her close, tears shining in her eyes. "Yes, my star. You did more than that. You showed yourself what you're capable of. And that is the most important step of all." The morning of the science fair arrived with excitement in the air. Amara woke up before the sun, her heart pounding fast. She lay still for a moment, staring at the ceiling, imagining what the day would bring. She could see herself standing proudly beside her project, speaking with confidence. She could also see the faces of her classmates, her teacher, and all the visitors who would walk past her table. For weeks, she had practiced her words, polished her model, and memorized every fact. Now, it was time to show the world what she had been working so hard on. Her mother helped her pack everything carefully. The project board, the model of the air system, the notes she had written all went into a big box that they carried to the car. "Are you ready, my star?" Elaine asked as she placed the box in the back seat. Amara nodded, though her hands trembled slightly. "I'm ready," she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. During the drive, she kept looking out the window at the sky. The morning clouds looked soft and endless, reminding her again of the dream she was chasing. She smiled faintly, whispering under her breath, "One step closer." When they arrived at the school gym, the atmosphere buzzed with energy. Tables lined the floor, decorated with colorful boards, models, and experiments. Children moved around with excitement, their parents helping them set things up. Judges, teachers, and visitors wandered between the rows, peeking at projects and asking questions. The air smelled faintly of glue, paper, and nervous anticipation. Amara carried her project with care, setting it up neatly on the assigned table. She smoothed the edges of her board, adjusted the tubes on her model, and stood back to take a deep breath. "You've got this," Elaine whispered in her ear before stepping aside to let her daughter shine. The fair began with a short announcement, and soon the judges started moving from table to table. Amara stood tall, her hands folded in front of her, trying to calm her racing heart. When the first group of visitors approached, she straightened her shoulders and began her presentation. Her voice shook a little at first, but as she continued, confidence took over. She explained how astronauts needed clean air systems to survive in space and how her model showed a simple way to recycle air. She pointed to her diagrams, demonstrated the working model, and smiled politely at every question. By the time she finished, the visitors were nodding with interest. "That's very impressive," one of them said. "You explained it so clearly." Amara's cheeks glowed with pride. As the hours passed, more people stopped at her table. Some children came out of curiosity, wide-eyed at her model. Parents asked questions, impressed by her knowledge. The judges took careful notes, asking her to explain certain details again. Each time, she spoke with more passion, more belief. With every word, she felt the dream inside her growing stronger. She was no longer just imagining herself as an astronaut. She was acting like one, confident, focused, and determined. Her teacher passed by too, stopping in front of her project. Amara's heart skipped a beat. She remembered the day her teacher had laughed at her dream, the way she had felt small and invisible. Now, standing behind her project, she felt taller than ever. The teacher leaned forward, scanning her board and model carefully. "This is quite detailed, Amara," she said, her voice softer than usual. "You put in a lot of work." Amara nodded politely, fighting the urge to smile too wide. "Yes, ma'am. I did." For a moment, the teacher's expression was unreadable. She didn't laugh, but there was a flicker of surprise in her eyes, as if she was seeing Amara in a new light. And then, the moment that no one expected arrived. During the afternoon, the head organizer announced that some guest judges had joined the fair to encourage the students. Everyone turned as two professionals walked in, dressed smartly, wearing badges. Among them was Elaine, holding her folder and smiling warmly. The gym filled with whispers. Parents and students looked at her curiously, wondering who she was. Amara's heart skipped in excitement and pride. She knew what was coming. When Elaine was introduced, the words sent a wave of surprise through the room. "This is Dr. Elaine Johnson, a senior aerospace engineer at NASA. She has worked on several major projects and is here today as a guest judge." The room went still for a second, then filled with murmurs. Amara's classmates looked at her in shock. Even the teacher's eyes widened, her mouth slightly open. She turned to Amara with disbelief, as though seeing her for the first time. Amara stood taller, her chest swelling with pride. This was the moment she had dreamed of, the moment her mother's truth would shine a light on her own dream. Elaine moved from project to project, greeting the children warmly and asking thoughtful questions. When she finally reached Amara's table, the entire gym seemed to hold its breath. Amara smiled nervously but proudly, standing by her project. Elaine looked at her daughter's board, examined the model, and then turned to her with a knowing smile. "Can you explain your project to us, young scientist?" she asked formally, as though she didn't already know every detail. Amara straightened her back, cleared her throat, and began her presentation. Her voice was strong, her words flowing smoothly. She explained the clean air system, the importance of life support machines in space, and how her model was inspired by real technology used at NASA. Elaine listened carefully, nodding with pride, while the other judges looked impressed. When Amara finished, one of the guest judges said, "That was excellent. You explained a complex idea in such a clear way." Elaine smiled broadly and added, "I can tell she has a natural gift for science and problem solving. With focus and determination, she could go very far." The gym erupted with applause. Amara felt tears prick her eyes. She had never felt so proud, so seen, so validated. Her classmates stared at her in awe, their earlier teasing replaced with admiration. Some whispered to each other, "Her mom works at NASA." The teacher, still standing nearby, seemed frozen for a moment. Her eyes shifted between Amara and Elaine, her expression a mix of surprise and embarrassment. Slowly, she approached Elaine and said, I didn't realize Amara came from such an incredible background." Elaine gave a polite smile, but her voice was steady. "Amara doesn't need anyone's background to make her dreams real. She has her own brilliance and drive. That is what will take her where she wants to go." The teacher nodded silently, her face turning slightly red. For the first time, she looked at Amara not with doubt, but with respect. She didn't say much, but her silence said enough. Amara felt her heart swell. The laughter she had once endured now seemed far away, replaced with applause, admiration, and respect. When the results of the fair were announced, Amara's project received special recognition for creativity and scientific potential. She held her ribbon proudly, her mother's arm wrapped around her shoulders. The entire gym clapped as she stepped forward to receive it. In that moment, she realized it wasn't just about winning. It was about proving to herself, and to everyone else, that her dream mattered. She was no longer the little girl others laughed at. She was the girl who had shown courage, intelligence, and belief. That night, as she lay in bed, the stars outside her window sparkled more brightly than ever. She whispered softly, "One day, I'll be up there," and this time, she knew everyone who had seen her today believed it too. The night after the science fair, Amara could barely sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, her ribbon clutched in her hand. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the moment her mother's name had been announced, the look of surprise on her teacher's face, and the sound of applause that had filled the gym. It all felt like a dream, but a dream she had lived with her own courage and hard work. For the first time, she felt like the stars were not just faraway lights, they were waiting for her. The next morning, when she walked into her classroom, something felt different. Usually, she walked in quietly, keeping her head low while her classmates whispered behind her back. But today, the room fell silent as she entered. Some of the kids who used to laugh at her now looked at her with wide eyes, whispering things like, "That's the girl whose mom works at NASA, and she's really smart." A few even smiled at her, not with mockery, but with respect. Amara felt her cheeks warm, but she kept her chin up. She knew that respect wasn't just because of her mother. It was because she had stood by her dream when everyone else doubted her. Later that day, her teacher called her aside. The woman's voice was softer than usual, almost uncertain. "Amara," she began, "I want to apologize. I may have made you feel small when you shared your dream. I shouldn't have laughed. I should have encouraged you." Amara's eyes widened. She had never expected to hear such words. For a moment, she didn't know how to respond. She simply nodded and said, "It's okay, ma'am." But inside, she felt something shift. The teacher's apology was more than words, it was proof that she had changed her view. For the rest of the week, Amara noticed how her teacher treated her differently. When Amara raised her hand to answer a question, the teacher listened more carefully. When she shared an idea, the teacher nodded thoughtfully, no longer dismissing it. It wasn't just about her dream anymore. It was about respect. Amara realized that sometimes, the best way to change people's minds was not by arguing, but by showing them through action. She had done that at the science fair, and it had made all the difference. At home, Amara and her mother celebrated quietly. They cooked a special dinner, laughed together, and sat by the window watching the stars. Elaine told her, "I am so proud of you, Amara. Not just for your project, but for the way you carried yourself with strength. You didn't give up, even when others doubted you. That's the kind of spirit astronauts need." Amara smiled, her heart glowing. "Do you think I can really do it, Mom? Do you think I can really go to space one day?" Elaine hugged her tightly. "Yes, I do. Because you already have the most important part, the belief in yourself." The months that followed brought even more changes. Amara began to take science more seriously than ever. She borrowed books from the library about astronauts and missions to the moon. She read about Mae Jemison, the first black woman in space, and about other pioneers who had faced obstacles but kept going. Their stories filled her with courage. Whenever she felt tired or discouraged, she reminded herself that if they could overcome challenges, so could she. Her classmates, once skeptical, slowly grew curious about her passion. One day, a boy who had teased her before asked shyly, "Amara, can you show me how your project worked? It was kind of cool." Amara hesitated, then smiled and explained it to him patiently. Soon, other kids began asking questions too. Instead of mocking her, they wanted to learn from her. For the first time, she felt like she wasn't just chasing her dream for herself, she was inspiring others too. Her teacher also changed. During a science lesson one afternoon, she looked at Amara and said, "Class, let's all remember that every big achievement starts with a dream. Don't ever let someone else tell you your dream is too big." Amara blinked in surprise. It was as if the teacher was repeating the very words her mother had once told her. She smiled softly, realizing that even adults could learn and grow. As the school year ended, Amara stood taller than she had at the beginning. She was still the same girl who stared at the stars every night, but she was no longer carrying her dream alone. She had her mother's support, her classmates' curiosity, and even her teacher's respect. Most importantly, she had her own unshakable belief. She knew the road ahead would not be easy. Becoming an astronaut would take years of study, hard work, and perseverance. But she was ready for that. She had already learned the most important lesson, that dreams are never too big when you have the courage to chase them. On the last evening of the school year, Amara sat with her mother on the porch. The sky stretched above them like a giant canvas painted with stars. The air was warm and quiet, filled only with the sound of crickets. Amara leaned against her mother and whispered, "Do you think the stars know I'm coming?" Elaine chuckled softly, kissing her daughter's forehead. "Yes, my star. They've been waiting for you all along." As Amara gazed at the night sky, she no longer felt the sting of her teacher's laughter or the weight of her classmates' teasing. Those moments had become part of her story, the challenges that had shaped her strength. What she felt now was peace, hope, and determination. She smiled, her eyes fixed on the stars, and whispered again, "One day, I'll be up there." This time, her words were not just a wish, they were a promise.